Have you noticed a bunch of people dropping a whole bunch of weight suddenly without much mention about their lifestyles having changed, without much mention about, how they're suffering from their diet, or, they're talking about running a new ultra marathon or going out and, doing some sort of a triathlon? These things are not happening as far as the changes in the physical lifestyle goes. For the majority, there's a lot of people out there right now that are dropping weight, and it's not by accident, okay? We've gone through cycles of this throughout history, and I'm going to tell you in a moment exactly what's going on with a lot of them. So there's a little history behind this, okay, in our society. Pharmaceutically speaking, it's a simple one, okay? Rather than changing the lifestyle, most people want to have their cake and eat it too. Look, as long as you're well educated on what it is you're doing, great. As long as you have all the information, great. There's nothing to judge, nothing to deal with right there. It's a decision on your part, okay? And certainly there are people out there who are in very deep, that a simple change in lifestyle might not be quick enough to save their lives, actually. They're that deep. That's a small population, though. I'm going to say it straight out. The vast majority, especially in America, the vast majority that is just morbidly obese, okay, that would be about 50 pounds overweight in that area, 50 to 75 pounds. We would call that morbid obesity. I think the official definition is everything up to 25 pounds is considered obese. So everything up to 25 pounds overweight is obese, and then 25 plus, when you get around that 50-pound mark, it gets to be morbidly obese. That means risk of death is very, very high. Super morbidly obese, I think I've made that term up. It goes way above 50, 75 pounds to where they're in the hundreds of pounds overweight. So something really needs to be done if they want to save their lives. Lifestyle change may not be quick enough, so I don't want to keep repeating that one. But here we go. The history behind all this. I'm going to give you some dates that we can really point out now. Number one is I moved to Los Angeles from New York back in 1986. And right about that time, it was somewhere between 1987 and 1990, there were a lot of weight loss clinics out in Los Angeles. And I remember hearing about these clinics and how they were prescribing or treating people with what was called Fen-Phen at the time. And it had people dropping body fat, body weight overall. And unfortunately, as is the case when a lot of people get a hold of some drugs that perhaps, I'm saying perhaps, have not been drug tested or clinically tested as fully as we all hope our scientific community would do so, as we all hope the Food and Drug Administration would require, as we all hope our own government would require before releasing it on the public. Unfortunately, Fen-Phen led to a lot of heart problems, valve issues in their hearts, and some people had to have heart surgery to repair the valves in their hearts. So by my recollection, it was serious enough that Fen-Phen kind of went pooh, bye-bye over that time period. Somewhere between 87 and 1990, it just kind of disappeared because of the dangers associated with it. But not to be outdone, so what would take its place then? Because, plenty of people who are just simply 40, 50 pounds overweight that are living a fat lifestyle and are enjoying that lifestyle and have no plans whatsoever to change their lifestyle, they need something. They're willing to take a pill, willing to take a shot, willing to go ahead and trust their doctor. Just if the doctor will give it to them, they'll take it and they'll assume, hey, I'll be fine because the doctor gave it to me, of course. And what are we talking about here? At that point in time, well, once the Fen-Phen was off the market, a lot of people were left with thyroid medications of various types. One in particular, I remember Synthroid. Synthroid is prescribed for people who are hypothyroid, meaning their thyroid is just not kicking. So they give them Synthroid to kick up their thyroid and to have them, suddenly they don't have struggles with their body weight. This medication, it made its way, now I'm talking about gym lifestyle now, it made its way around the gyms quite a bit. Once Fen-Phen was gone, Synthroid was around for quite a while, until the early 90s. And then what happened? The next one to come along, Ephedrine. Ephedrine, all by itself, by the way. Ephedrine, or ma huang, was the herb that it came off of or was derived from. Ephedrine HCl, all by itself, just a 25 milligram pill. That was good at shredding body fat, relatively safe. It made its way all throughout the gyms. And it wasn't just ephedrine. This was discovered along the way during that path in the gyms, that the combination of the 25 milligram ephedrine, the 200 milligram caffeine, or no dose, you could take a no dose caffeine pill for 200 milligrams, and a baby aspirin. That's it. That was the combination. The combination of the three shredded body fat off of people. And people would take that 3 times a day. And yeah, I mean, there were some people who were sensitive to it and would get heart palpitations and things like that, and they would know to lower their dose, or they would just not take it 3 times a day. And then there were also the real wild people out there in the gym who would double the dose, because more is better, right? That's sort of the personality of some of the extremists. More is better. So they also became lab rats in a way, but for the most part, I have to say, it was highly effective at burning off body fat. And no, there were not people dropping dead or suffering heart or cardiovascular or any really big issues in the gyms. Nobody was dropping dead, in other words, from the combination of ephedrine, caffeine, and baby aspirin. Those people just never, it was all over the place. Everybody used it. And then when we hit, it was good for, about 7-8 years. And when we came to the late 90s, all of a sudden, that combination of those ingredients was everywhere outside of the gym. It was in your everyday CVS, Walgreens. It was in every weight loss product you could imagine. Okay, so it made its way to the general public, and it was, going strong. Again, people were not dropping like flies. It was a fairly effective supplement combination, medication combination. However, for what it's worth, it did raise some people's blood pressure, and those who had hypertension, certainly it kicked them over into the high blood pressure range. Now, that long-term is bad in and of itself, but short-term, it didn't knock people out of the box. What was the problem? Well, right around 2002, 3, in that zone, if you combine that medication, which does, raise the blood pressure, as I just mentioned, somewhat, and you give it to people who are trying to lose weight, that would be a problem for those who are already hypertensive. But now let's do this. Take a couple of football players, and this is the way I recall it went down, back around 2002, 2003. We had summertime, and it was hell week for one high school football player and one college football player. And I believe, as I recall, one was in Mississippi, but the other was in Louisiana. And they had to cut weight to make their team. And they had a lot of weight to cut. And so not only did they go on that combination of the ephedrine, the caffeine, and the aspirin, the baby aspirin, and they took it 3 times a day, but they also were going through hell week. They also were working out super hard in high heat, high humidity, dehydrating, and they were taking, here we go, salt pills, high sodium. Now, this all by itself, salt pills, is favoring one electrolyte above all others. So you're causing an imbalance to happen right there where, in some of their cases, they may have needed a little bit of potassium to go with that sodium, or maybe some calcium, some magnesium, some phosphorus. These are other electrolytes that were floating around that they weren't supplementing with. And if they compounded the salt pills with something like a Gatorade, let's say. Gatorade is a higher sodium product that has some potassium in it. On its own, Gatorade has proven itself to be, pretty good, obviously, over the years at hydrating people. Plain water would be, one of the best, but Gatorade has done a decent job of it. But now if you throw in high sodium in the form of salt pills, sodium pills, sodium chloride pills. Lots of those will now cause a huge imbalance, and our hearts run on the sodium. It's known as a sodium-potassium pump. So there has to be a certain percentage between our sodium and potassium to keep things running well. And just like a finely tuned engine, these two boys, remember there were two of them at the time, they dropped dead during Hell Week. And dehydration was an issue. Cutting weight, they were on extreme diets. That was an issue. Salt pills, that was an issue. But when the coroners found, yep, here we go, the ephedrine and the caffeine and the aspirin in their system. No, they didn't single out the caffeine or the aspirin. No, they didn't single out that they were totally dehydrated. No, they didn't say, which by the way, all of those ingredients do dehydrate a person even more. So they need even more water than usual. They didn't take much into consideration where their weight loss was concerned, this massive amount of weight loss they were undergoing in the attempt to make their football teams. They singled out the ephedrine out of everything. Now, I don't know about you, but back then I remember shaking my head going, wow, we were a decade into this since around 1993. A highly effective, very popular, and often used pre-workout supplement, definitely pre-cardio, let's say that, okay, was ephedrine, caffeine, and aspirin. Suddenly it was banned and outlawed. And all the companies in the United States that were producing it, of course, they didn't want lawsuits, so they dropped the manufacturing of it. And they usually supplemented or changed the ephedrine by throwing in pseudoephedrine, which is a cough medicine. It comes, they called it bitter orange extract. So it comes from the orange peel, but pseudoephedrine. It's a form of ephedrine, not anywhere near as effective as the ephedrine. They would combine that with the caffeine and the aspirin. Nowhere near as effective. So it didn't shred body fat like the other did, like ephedrine did. So what were we left with at that point? Again, another great, well, this was a great fat loss product with not a lot of side effects, taken off the market. Okay, so since that time, by the way, it's been brought back in other forms, but companies don't want to take on the liability. It's a big liability. So what happened? 2003, that drops out. And don't you know, right around that time, are you noticing a pattern here, by the way? Society has these great fat loss, weight loss products that almost everybody seems to be taking, and then there's problems. And they're gone. And something else within a year or two or three pops in, takes over that market. There's always a market for weight loss products, okay? And so here we go. What was the big one? Well, once we got around 2003, 2004, Alli, A-L-L-I. Now this one was an interesting one because I even had clients at the time who I was giving them diets. I was giving them, I was training them, obviously. I'd have them doing cardio, and man, they were not losing any weight because a lot of the clients, they would hire me as a trainer, and of course, they were depending on my expertise to get their workouts together and also prescribe to them what to do outside of the gym. They just didn't realize how difficult it was going to be, and they weren't willing to go down that road of changing all of their lifestyle habits, especially when it came to their beloved food. So a lot of them did not lose any weight at all. And in the end, they did, however, realize that they were happy hiring me and could afford to hire me as their trainer because they figured, what the heck, this is keeping me from gaining any more weight. And it was. However, at some point in time when I noticed a couple of my clients suddenly shrinking, and these clients were not ones that were that ever changed their habits, and they told me so. These were the ones who were like, well, I'm going to keep you as my trainer because that's keeping me from getting fat. So they were already a little bit fat, but they didn't want to get really fat. So what happened? Well, they confessed to me they were using Alli. What was Alli? Alli was a fat blocker. And I don't have the chemical name in front of me right now, but the trade name was Alli. The fat blocker would, in fact, block the absorption of dietary fat when you would eat it. So what would it do with it? It would shoot undigested fat in the form of an oil down through your intestines, and it would go all the way down and excrete the fat, undigested, just like that. So, but it prevented your body from absorbing it. That's what it was. Now, for those of you who go, wow, that can't be too healthy. Well, the thing about it was that Alli was blocking the absorption of 9 calories per gram right there. Wow, if it's blocking a decent amount of fat from being absorbed, wow, you're dropping your caloric. In other words, you're on a forced reduced calorie program at that point, right? Why is it forced? Well, the insert of this product at the time was pretty quick to point out how it suggested that, you be aware that if you eat more than 15 grams of fats within any meal, that you stood a chance of having, let's call it surprise diarrhea, okay? When someone thought they were just simply going to pass gas, they didn't just pass gas. They passed some surprise diarrhea. And that oily substance, would stain up their pants. So they were, part of the insert prescribed that they have an extra set of pants on them and not to wear white or light colored pants. Kind of gross, right? Well, don't you know, my clients did say, in fact, that it did say these things. And sure enough, they would not eat. They did not want any part of that surprise diarrhea. So what did they do? They went ahead and they kept their fats. They learned how not to eat a lot of grams of fat within any one meal. They kept their grams under 15 grams of fat, and then they wouldn't get this diarrhea. That's it. Parentheses I'd like to add to that conversation about Alli. It was a great training product. It trained the people to change the habits. It trained them so it proved that they could do it. So my whole point to them was, if this thing you're taking is proving you can do it, it's keeping you from overdoing it, do you really need it? Well, they weren't going to have that, so they continued to take it. Now, of course, here's the problem. Any drug that's not been around for a long, long time, that's not been studied for a long, long time, and certainly Alli was not around for a long, long time, whoo, man, suddenly you started hearing the reports. Colon cancer. It was linked, reports were linking it to colon cancer. And at that point in time, it scared enough of the people to get off of it. To this day, that product, I don't know if it's the exact same product, but it's still out there under that trade name. So they may have changed the main ingredient, I don't know, but I'm just giving you the history of what was used, okay? And what was reported to me by my clients at the time, and how we ended up here. So again, it filled a hole in our society for those who wanted to take a weight loss pill. And Alli did train them to not eat, or overeat, I should say, really bad, high fat foods, especially the processed high fat foods. It just would give them diarrhea right away. So Alli, out the window it went, because a lot of people were afraid, especially the men, of getting colon cancer. At this point, I'm like, woo, man, how many did we name? This is going since like 1986 all the way to 2003, right? Man, oh man. So the only thing that was continuing throughout all of that was somehow people in the gyms would still get a hold of the thyroid medications, and that in the gyms, that was still being used. So I named Synthroid, but there were other ones they would use. And those medications were about the only thing that people would use going from around 2004 onward in the gym. In the general public, there really wasn't a hot pill or shot that people would take until these last few years. Now we're getting up on in the 2024s, 2025s, and I know a lot of y'all have heard rumblings out there and seen commercials about things that are called GLP-1 drugs, such as Ozempic, Mounjaro, Wegovy, and really cool names that are out there. And they run all day long, these commercials. Big Pharma runs these commercials all day long on daytime TV. So all of a sudden, these GLP-1 drugs started to pop up, and they're an interesting classification of drugs. Originally, the people who I knew who were prescribed this by their doctors were super morbidly obese. There we go. Most of the medical community that prescribed this for the patients recognized that the patient was not losing weight, that the patient's health markers were going straight down the toilet, that it was a life and death situation. And the people that I knew who did take it, I have to admit fully that when they explained everything to me and they showed me, what it was that they were taking, and I looked at them, and you're talking about people that are, 100 plus pounds overweight, and they were just lost for breaking their habits. They couldn't break them. Well, this drug comes along, and yes, they took it, and yes, this drug would make them nauseous if they ate too much. So that nausea, again, notice the effect here. It's a training effect that these GLP-1 drugs have done. They've trained these people to get nauseous if they ate too much. And sure enough, that body weight was falling off of them. And if they were not exercising, the only negative to this was it was actually burning off half fat, half muscle. That's it. So the combination is very bad. So it was speedily dropping their weight. But we need that lean muscle mass. Without it, as it disintegrates, your metabolism is actually getting slower. So you're creating a new battle down the line, okay? You have to eat less and less or else you gain weight. That's a problem. When you have more muscle, you can eat more food. There's the bottom line. So those who were using it, though, and worked out, by that I mean using bodybuilding type exercises to build their lean muscle mass, they had better results. Mostly body fat burned off. Very small percentage of muscle mass being burned off. So they prevented that aspect of the Ozempics, the Wegovy's, and the Mounjaros, the GLP-1 drugs. They prevented the biggest negative up till that point. Now, suddenly, and I say suddenly as I started this video off by mentioning, suddenly we start to notice there's a lot of people out there who are burning body weight off. And no, they're not super morbidly obese. And no, they weren't going to die if they didn't have an immediate change, something that reduced their body fat fast. Yeah, I've had people confess it to me. I've asked. They've told me that yes, they were using the GLP-1 drugs, the Ozempics, the Mounjaros, and Wegovy. Again, I don't see anything wrong with those things if it's saving someone's life. Either way, the negative of these medications is that it's supposed to be used for a lifelong period, like for the rest of their lives. Unfortunately, I can't report that there's been a ton of study on these things that's followed it for 25 years and can positively recommend, hey, this is really safe. No. So we're in an age right now where we're about to see. So we're in a whole new cycle. What is this, like the fourth one that I've just mentioned? Everything from the Fen-Phen to the thyroid medications, to the Ephedrine, to the Alli. Yes, this is 4 or 5 right here. And the GLP-1 drugs now, okay? They're derivatives, by the way, of GLP-1 peptides. So they're a little bit different. The peptides in the gym, in the bodybuilding culture, there are GLP-1 peptides that are used, and they're not quite as powerful or long-lasting as these GLP-1 drugs. These are derivatives of that and prescribed by a physician. So suddenly the dam has burst. Suddenly the gate is open. Suddenly these things are really available to the masses. And so I'm seeing a large number of people that even my eye now, when I see somebody dropping 20, 30, 40 pounds, and they drop the weight without me even knowing whether or not they've changed their diet or changed their lifestyle, it makes me want to ask them, well, how'd you do it? And, if they're not quick to point out a massive diet change or lifestyle change, exercise, etc., then I'm quick to suspect the next thing that they're going to say is that they went down this road. So that is what has happened with several people that I've talked to. So I'm just giving you guys a report and letting you know what's out there today and how suddenly we're seeing this proliferate all over society, at least in Western society right now. It's very, very accessible, okay? Let the buyer beware, okay? Just keep your eyes open and read the inserts and read all the potential side effects that you're seeing out there right now, and do a little research. See if you can find out a little bit more about these things before just simply taking it from your doctor. Ask your doctor about the side effects, the known ones at least, up until now. Okay, so up till now, I've only heard hypothetical side effects, so I don't want to go on and on about them and say anything beyond just that it's supposed to be a lifelong medication, and people are trying to use it to get their weight down and then go off of it. And I'm not sure if that's changing their habits. Their lifestyle needs to change. So that should be the goal. Even if you did use it to drop weight, you have to go into it with the idea that, well, I'm changing my habits and my lifestyle, and when I go off of this thing, I'm definitely going to retain the lifestyle and the new habits. That's it. All right? So, before you go, off to my left, you're going to see this disc pop up. That is the subscribe button for my channel. Please give that thing a tap. Down below and off to your left, you're going to see a thumbs up button. Please tap it and give it a change of color, okay? If it's not changing color, use your elbow, use your fist, hit that thumbs up button. Make it change color. It lets the YouTube algorithm know how much you're liking my videos and how much you want to see more of them, okay? So it lights up the algorithm and it lights me up too. Go get it. I'll see you in the next video. Can't wait.